We are live. Welcome, Brave New Life community and Earth Heroes. And we are going to be doing a weekly conversation around sympathy and a lot of the conversations that we're having around building community. So I'm really excited to be on here with you, Shay, from Earth Heroes, and Sovereign, obviously from Brave New Life and doing his course in sympathy. And here in New Mexico with Paul Richardson, who's been doing a lot around living building structures. And we've been sort of at this leg of my little migration tour, activation tour, whatever this is here in New Mexico, and then moving into Colorado and then over to North Carolina. So I wanted to just let people know that if you're not on our mailing list already, I'm going to put the link in there that I would encourage everybody to go to Brave New Life. And on the Earth Heroes platform, and maybe sure you can put that in there, that people can actually look at not only this conversation, but a lot of conversations. So I think if we open it up and you just share with people briefly what Earth Hero is about, and then we'll kind of move into the film that you guys, the Regeneration film that you guys are getting ready to launch.
Yeah, thank you, Amani and Sovereign, and also Hey Paul. Earth Heroes Project is all about celebrating the solutions that are readily available for us to just really tap into, and it looks at the greater scope of what's happening in the world and the structures of our societies, but then looks at the journey within, fundamentally starting with ourselves and how we can really conduct ourselves and find ourselves in amongst the environment that we're immersed in. And so the film that we're going to be launching very shortly is all about the success stories. So we have, over the last couple of years, gone and discovered that there are so many amazing people in the world, amazing businesses, amazing organizations who are all willing and ready and already contributing to a positive impact in the world. And so we went around and filmed some of these, and one of their success stories is a local permaculture farm down in Yeppoon in Queensland who have completely shifted to a regenerative syntropic agroforestry system to be able to provide organic local food for their restaurant. And it's just a phenomenal story. It's one of these great stories where this family has really dove into deeply and immersed themselves in these practices, and finding that the results are just hugely yielding and hugely positive for the community, because they're creating jobs, 2, they're creating community, 3, they're bringing people together, and they're providing tremendous amount of organic, delicious, amazing food for the people. And it's just so many positive things happening in the world. And what we want to try to achieve with this film is just to share those positive messages through the source of, through media, through creative filmmaking, through our passions, which we love sharing stories with others. So it's been a wonderful journey to be on, and I just feel so blessed that there's amazing people who have contributing to make this film happen and this project. And I mean, the Brave New Life Network is just a phenomenal little ecosystem of people who are also just so committed to being the change that they wish to see in the world. And that's something for me that is truly inspiring. And I feel like really blessed to be a part of this little ecosystem that is like, it's not little anymore.
I know, I was just going to say, it's not that little, it's growing quite exponentially, even though we haven't made it easy for people to navigate through it, which is actually the kind of the beautiful thing about it, is that people are showing up and they are seeking sovereign solutions, and they are willing to participate. So I think that that combination and what we've been able to do with the partnership with you of that platform, the beautiful platform that you built out. I love that story. And some people might be, when you said that, some people might be thinking, well, what's syntropy or what's agroforestry? You know, we've heard the overused term sustainable. People are starting to hear about regenerative agriculture. But when we talk about syntropy and agroforestry, these are kind of new terms. And the most perfect person to talk about it would be you, Sovereign, to explain what is syntropy, what is agroforestry. And I'm going to put up the course on syntropy, so if anybody wants to check that out and do a deeper dive with you. But can you give us a little definition?
Yes. Well, for those that are still in the matrix, so to speak, and have familiarized themselves with permaculture or sustainable or organic farming, or know what those sort of things are, what syntropic agroforestry is permaculture with a very highly advantageous financial proposition. And that is something that permaculture has never had. The only people that have ever made money in permaculture were really the people that were getting more people into permaculture. And this may, offend a few people listening in, but that's and wow, those teachers, those trainers giving those courses, how amazing, because permaculture in its own succession was so relevant to a world waking up to the dystopia, to the reality that we got to take self-responsibility, and the place to do that is on our own zone 0 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The change that we wish to see in the world, of course, starts within and with ourselves. And yet nobody that I know of, and this has been my study field for 15 years, so I feel that I have quite a bit of experience-based language to add to this conversation. Nobody that I have come across that got themselves involved in permaculture was able to turn that into something that became financially profitable or sustainable in their own needs beyond just what they could do, because reality was they just still had to go and get a job. But syntropic agroforestry is the next succession of what permaculture was and permaculture is. It takes all of the best tools and understandings, because it's the study of nature, which is what permaculture has mostly been about as well, in terms of how does it apply itself. But it goes and hones in so much more in a systemized way that we really create finite kind of like definitions of how life is working, how life is functioning, what plants are, what is their function in the ecosystem, and how do they combine well. In permaculture, there was companion planting. In syntropic agroforestry, there's successional stages of planting everything out into a system, in kind of like one go, and then you ongoingly manage it. And because the management is tailored to what benefits life most, it's like navigating with life in every aspect of its expression. When we do that, we start tapping into what life is really here to be and has always been, and can shine into our own experience, and that is abundance. And when we work with nature, so we can say, well, I only want to have 1 head of lettuce. Well, but what if you planted 20, because nature can grow all of it? And so with syntropic agroforestry, you're looking beyond what you just want maybe for yourself, and it can work in that way as well. It's a multi-tiered relearning, remembering practice, and it's got really beautiful principles that are all based on how nature operates in and of itself. So it's not a new philosophy or a new ideology or a new hype where we think it's the next best organic agriculture. Organic agriculture mostly is industrial agriculture. It's just that it's done organically. And syntropic agroforestry is really navigating with life in as much as we are in the now moment of where we engage in syntropy, for as much as we are able to start right from the baseline in harmony. Because syntropic agroforestry is not an extremist proposition. It's like, oh, well, now you really got to drop all your chemicals, and now you got to. No, it is probably the most forgiving and the most loving and the most rewarding and the most returning and the most elevating agricultural agroforestry practice that has been brought to the world. So that's my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, nice, Sovereign. I just wanted to add one thing in there, that's something that really stood out to me and that you shared, and it was the word abundance. And a dear friend of mine had just been part of a syntropic agroforestry course just last week, And the first 2 days of a 4-day course, they actually weren't in the garden and looking at the systems that were in place. However, they were focusing on the mindset and looking at the mindset of scarcity and the mindset of abundance. And the simple example we can use, you just walk into a natural native forest anywhere in the world, and nature doesn't know what scarcity is. It thrives on diversity. It thrives on abundance. And I recently took in a propagation course, which we're going to be releasing on Earth Heroes, and we were talking about what is propagation. And propagation is exactly that. It is abundance. It's creating resilience. It's replicating. It's immersing into what nature just offers and gives and gives and gives unconditionally to all of us at any time, at any point, to realize that life is abundant and it wants to grow. It wants to thrive. It wants to just flourish and immerse. And it's a really, really beautiful, important lesson for me to witness, where I'm limiting myself and getting stuck in my own scarcity mindset, but really returning to how would we do it in nature? What would it take for us to really shift our perspective and to see the abundance of love, the abundance of life, the abundance of growth that surround us everywhere? And it's just a really great reminder and a lesson to really look at our own stories and our own perspectives and realize, where can we shift that to align ourselves with nature, with our natural orientation, our natural human existence. And I really love your sharing, Sovereign, so thanks so much. And I would love to hear Imani and Paul, the exciting new the series that you're
I loved your sharing. That was so beautiful. I mean, I wanted to hear from you about the idea behind the film that's coming out, the Regeneration film, because a lot of the ideas and the things that you're sharing on Earth Heroes are in that film. And what was the impetus behind it?
Yeah, thanks so much, Imani. Well, the experience of traveling to Vanuatu to meet Sovereign in this beautiful, idyllic kind of community was a huge opportunity to really be immersed in the real living matrix of what it takes to live in community, live on the land, live off the grid, and live in all of these beautiful fantasies, these ideas that we have created, but actually experience it. And it was a huge stepping stone to realize what's actually possible when we choose to align our values with the people that are around us and work towards a higher purpose that is beyond the limited self. And so the film really explores some of these and celebrates, most importantly, these amazing projects that are happening today in this world that we find ourselves in, that are really positive, that are working towards the solutions. And something that I really want to touch on is this element that the film has kind of come out with impeccable timing. It's not released just yet, but the climate of the world that we find ourselves in today, in Far North Queensland here in Australia, I speak from my own experience, and I am witnessing the death of a huge industry in this region, multiple losses of jobs, multiple losses of the economy in this region, a lot of loss of, we're seeing I'm witnessing a lot of people take their own lives, and a lot of suicides, and a lot of death actually surrounding us, and in my immediate surroundings. This is not just something that I'm hearing on the news. This is people that I know. These are people in the community. And something that I've witnessed over the weekend when I was camping out at a local community spot, which had some backburning, was this huge burning of the forest. Yet it was in this moment that there was this death. It was imminent. However, already I could see the sprouts of the new seeds of the plants that were emerging and regenerating. And that's really important part, because the natural cycles and laws of the nature and the laws of the universe is that when something dies, something new will emerge. And this idea that we're in this moment in time where we're seeing this emergence, this regeneration of people who are ready to fully commit to creating a world that seems to be more in line with our natural human orientations and honoring the natural ecosystems of all of life. That it's like perfectly just coming together in a way that really honors, in a sacred way, the earth that we find ourselves in, and encourages us to look at where we can realign how we are using our own energy to really give back to the earth and to our fellow humans and to our communities who are surrounding us. And so the film, with its release next month, is really, really exciting time, because it seems that people are one, have a choice, have a choice to really drop into this state of confusion and fear and loss and sadness and grieving and all these really dense negative emotional responses that is natural for humans. Or we can choose to orientate ourselves to a future of connection and love and regeneration, and something of giving back and living of service and reconnecting to the land. And it's just an amazing opportunity for each of us to reflect on our own lives and to see where we're putting our time and our precious energy towards, and that we actually, it's so empowering, because the film finishes on a really positive note. It's quite inspiring and very hopeful film that just leaves the viewers, leaves everyone with one, opportunity to self-reflect on the choices that they're making in their lives, but two, leaves it open with a multitude of solutions that they can choose to contribute back towards. So it's really, really exciting time to be alive. And
I can't wait to see it, Shay. You guys, we've been talking about it for a while, and it's, the anticipation is there. Can you put the trailer in the comments if anybody wants to see the trailer? And you were talking about divine timing, and I know we brought Paul into this conversation with his experience of working community and living homes and structures. I actually just had an interview last week, sort of diving into that. But so we won't go too far. But you have a film that's also coming out in the timing. So maybe you speak to that and let people know, and we can.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing, guys. And just one thing that came up for me when I was in South Africa in 2018 doing some workshops. I came across some adepts at a temple outside of Johannesburg, and they kind of grilled me on my belief system about sustainability and the current practices that are going on, and they told me that the mother wants us in the forest. The mother wants us back in the forest, back where we belong, and it's so beautiful that you're really honoring that and bringing this film. I'm really excited to see it. And the film that I'm involved in, or was involved in, actually just the final filming happened yesterday, which is quite well timed. It started in July 2019. We are building I designed a hemp house in Northern California, and I was project managing and actually building myself. And my background is an architect, so my forte is not necessarily building, but as you said, Shay, this is the time where we step up, and this is where I wanted to step into that role where I could really holistically teach and understand what it takes, because there's obviously a lot of work. And hemp obviously is an amazing plant, and it has so much benefit because part of that puzzle is hemp is a tool for us to really stimulate people to get back into agriculture. I traveled a lot and saw a lot of deprivation in the land and poison, and I really believe hemp is a great plant because it can purify the soil, it can nitrogen fix the soil, and we can grow our homes, and we can grow our clothes. We can really take ownership of our future. The film itself is kind of it's a Discovery Channel documentary, so the element of it is more about sustainability and this kind of thing. But I think the story of the building process is going to be really interesting for people, because there's a lot of illusion. People don't really understand, I think, what a hemp house is, for one thing.
Maybe you tell them what it is. What would?
Well, I mean, hemp in construction comes from the stalk of the plant, and I went to Switzerland in 2018 and spent some time with the grandfather of hemp, Jürgen Hempel, and he owns a company called Hemp Ecosystems out there, and he was doing restoration of old structures in France and Europe in the 70s and 80s. And the big issue there was all these big old masonry buildings have a lot of issues with damp and cold, and the rising damp coming up through the walls. And if you see in the movies, the castles have, all the big tapestries and rugs on the wall. That wasn't for decoration. That was because them walls actually suck all the life out of anything in that room. They draw all the heat out, and it's really a uninhabitable space. So they had to find a way that they could save these structures and also let it breathe. And one day, this crazy farmer guy came up to him with a handful of stalks and said, "This is the future of construction." And so Jürgen basically commandeered him and his two wives, and they lived with them for 2 years, and they explored hemp. And what it is, that the core of the hemp plant itself and the stalk, it's like a soft woody core, and obviously it's drawing water, it's nitrogenizing and soil, it's holding minerals, it's purifying the water that's coming up into the plant. And so when we break that down through either a mechanical process or an alchemical process, you get this like the small pieces of a woody core, and together we mix that with water, and we mix it with hydrated lime, because hydrated lime is the most natural form of lime there is, and then we add some minerals to that, which are natural minerals, which are researched. Jürgen actually established these minerals looking at the Greek architecture and the old architecture, and how these old all these limestone buildings survived so long. And so when you put this combination together and then you build it into forms around, say, a wood frame, within minutes you can lift the form and it stays in its shape. And then over the process of 6 weeks to 2 months, it calcifies and starts turning back to limestone. But because of the hydrated lime, it's such a drawn out process that it's sequestering a lot. It's sequestering carbon. It's kind of a negative carbon plant. So it's kind of, what it takes in its growing process, or what it puts out, in its growing process, it's taken back in its calcification process. And it's amazing. And the properties of it's termite resistant, it's fire resistant, it's mold, rot resistant. It's a filter. It's like you're living in an amazing filter in your house, and it's purifying the air. It's modulating the humidity in the house. And I spent some time there, 3 feet of snow outside in Switzerland, and no heat on in the house. And we were walking around in t-shirts and shorts with just a couple of windows bringing light in, because it's such an amazing insulative properties to this building material. And also, if you want to make a music studio, it's a perfect sound material, because it doesn't deaden the sound, but it doesn't reverberate the sound. It's the purest sound you'll find. And I love playing music and sharing music in these kind of spaces. So I would encourage people to watch the movie, just not because I'm in it, but just because you'll learn something about the plan. And I think it's going to be the future of construction, personally.
I just think it's so incredible that both of these films, I mean, you guys have been working on them, and they started, quite some time ago, but they're just, you said the divine timing, Shay, that this is the time where people are ready. And these are the sovereign solutions. This is the future that we're building. I mean, so much of the conversations at Brave New Life are around community. We have our community conversations twice a week. Sovereign, I want to just come back around to you as we close this out, but the community conversations, the community platforms. It's sort of, I've been saying that we're sort of filtering people through our community. We have our own filtration system that people are kind of funneling through. And the distillation of what has evolved has been quite profound. And I'd love for you to speak to that, Sovereign, because I know that you've been even surprised yourself at this organic process of what's happened on our Brave New Life journey.
Yeah. Well, I think we've been, excuse me, we've been going for 10 months now, and everything that we engaged with was coming really from the community that was engaging with us. And for me, knowing so much about human ecology and what syntropy in human ecology looks like, how would we do it in nature? That became a nice social experiment. And that experiment is now ongoing for 10 months. And I've been a little bit of a explorer of syntax and language, and these Zoom Bloom meetings, they become a thing of their own. And it's beautiful because that's what life also is. We've been programmed and trained to really control and direct and limit, and that's very much like an inversion logic. It's not real logic. It's entropic. And that's because it's control based and it's manipulation based. And it's because I have a fantasy of what it should look like. And I've received a lot of training in my own, few years here on the earth. And when I coupled that with syntropy, it allowed me to really lean back and allow the process of emergence to really come into the space, because life will always fill the gap. So if we create that space for life to come into it, we cannot predetermine what that would look like. Well, we can if we want to, but then you're limiting it because you're putting your fantasies over the top of it. And so I like to say, and I've shared this for a while, to dream wisely. And everything that I shared as an inspiration for others, I make sure that I make it my training to do it really for myself. And because it's a lot easier to give a nice inspiration to somebody else and what they could be doing in their life than to actually do it myself. But I could feel really fulfilled telling other people to dream wisely so that I don't have to do it because they'll do it for me or something like that. Sounds really weird, right? Anyways, I made it my training to really keep it on myself, and whatever I feel that the world needs, probably I need. And whatever I feel that other people benefit changing, I benefit actually taking action into my life. And so I've been dreaming wisely. I've been really outside of a spiritual fantasy reality. I've been really just feeding myself from what I can receive. What does the new earth look like? How does it really feel? How does it really work? Because everybody has lovely fantasies, and I've had them for over 3 decades. And that's just because I didn't grow up in the world that was my ideal, new earth metric. And allowing life to infuse me by staying open and remaining curious without trying to put too much definition on, but stay with the intrinsic and the innate knowings that are part of human ecology, that are part of syntropy, allowed me to really explore sovereignty on a whole new level. Because now we got 100 people on a call, and a whole bunch of people may want to say something. And am I willing and able enough to truly receive? Or am I still in the Führer position where I say, no, I decide where this is going and how this is going to be operating because it's my thing that I came up with? I think this is something that is going to have no definition, but people can feel it. And so it's not something that we can teach other people how to do, because it's about returning to something that is innate and intrinsic. It's about letting go of a whole range of programmed belief systems. and the effects of it are so natural, and they're so yay. And
Yay.
what comes out of that is people's natural gifts and talents, just like the mango tree has the gift to produce mangoes. Everybody's unique, sovereign gifts and talents that are just part of who they are and how they form, they have a space in this ecosystem to be exactly who they are and explore themselves. Like, this is a hero's journey rolled into a couple of thousand people having a hero's journey, because that's what Brave New Life is about. Is your Brave New Life. It's definitely my Brave New Life. I've done a whole range of things that I was intimidated around, and my own little fears and faults, and it was a lot of stumbling and a lot of falling and a lot of not trying to upkeep this identity that we're doing something that people need to. There's so much programming in business as usual that is so detrimental to humans authentically connecting. And so I'm very grateful that it kind of took me, as a human that has already gone ahead of the wave for a while, to figure out how to do this without trying to do the business as usual, so that we can see something emerging and growing. And it's not just self-replicable, it's self-regenerative. And it's something that in other conversations we can go into a bit more, because it is worth putting language to this new metric, these new life ways, the brave new life ways. What do they look like? What do they feel like? Because it's really our time now to stop talking about entropy and the old paradigm and all the stuff that is going out there. We can name it and put it into perspective, but let's shift the percentage that we are focusing our time and energy in trying to still comprehend how we got where we got to, well, where are we going? What do we want? What do we want? What does it look like? How does nature function? How does she work? How can we navigate with life, as opposed to talking about everything that isn't life? And that's where I feel there is very little commercial incentive, because fear sells. It's full stop. It's proven. It's been proven through decades of successful marketing. You scare the shit out of people to buy something. And so for as long as we keep focusing on what life is not doing, and we don't talk about what life is doing, we will not necessarily discover what syntropic human ecology, what she looks like. Yes, I did say that. Syntropic human ecology, and the acronym is she, because we live in a matriarchal reality. This metric, life, she's wholly feminized. That has been the whole program, to desecrate and bring into. It's funny because it's just been a human created fantasy. It's been a total distortion. I call it human damage. But nature is super her. And I love that. And that's what we are returning to. We are returning to she, to a syntropic human ecology. And that requires us to let go of some of our programs. Shay just nailed it. It's so epic. And it's so simple at the same time, because we are syntropy. Because we are of the living. We are of life. We are of nature. And somehow that has not been part of our, well, not somehow, I know exactly why, because it's all performing a function with purpose to bring us into fearlessness and total clarity as to who we are as a divine expression of life and consciousness, that we are the custodians, caretakers, gardeners, not in this spiritualized, I'm a light worker and I'm doing all this amazing light work. That also is beautiful. But what I have found in my experience is that it's in the grounding with life, understanding the patterns of nature and comprehending that these patterns are universal. I realized that I was never taught any of that. So when we start remembering what is intrinsic and innate to our human nature, we remember again what sovereignty is, what our freedom is, what that actually entails, and how that connects with living with families, living in communities. And I feel that what we are exploring through Brave New Life is, to one degree, templating, but really we are returning. We are the path is already there. The path never, we don't have to lay the path or create she is the path. Syntropic human ecology is who we truly are as a human species. It's just that we've been cult programmed away from that. And now it's just, okay, let's join hands and let's start walking. And that's an offer to contract, if you understand language.
Lovely. I think you nailed it, Sovereign. Welcome to your brave new life. Anyone who wants to join us, I put the link to the mailing list in there. That's how you'll find your navigation to our conversations and our kind of private online platform that I won't put the link for, because there's a process in how you move through this ecosystem, even though it's completely organic and unfolding in
Well, I just briefly want to speak to that, because what is really relevant, because I measure everything to how it works in syntropic agroforestry, how it works in the agroforest. And so an ecosystem has to have a certain biodiversity, a certain bioresiliency level to be able to be introduced into that ecosystem even more, more life, more diversity. And so there needs to be synergy. There needs to be, the patterns of perfection work really well when there is a harmonizing field. And of course, nature in of itself doesn't have a challenge, really. It's really humans that intervene and interfere with nature's ways of being that causes scarcity and lack in those systems. And it's predominantly humanity that has caused any scarcity, really, that we may find in nature. It's all human induced. But when we look at cultivating a new garden plot, and this is also tying into permaculture, you don't create a garden bigger than what you can manage. Because once you have that system in the flow and that becomes self-harmonizing and self-organizing, then it naturally makes sense to go a little bit further. Of course, I was always trained is just to bite off the biggest piece that you ever can and just, work at it and work at it. Well, that's not syntropic. That's not being in allowance and having the time to reflect and sit and meditate. And so we're keeping this ecosystem really for those that really want to navigate in and with and around what we speak towards and what we speak around, feeling-based relating, coming into syntropy with ourselves in our circumstances where we live. And for me, it's really clear, is I only want to navigate with people that want to be really real with themselves, that want to feel and explore life in ways that the current culture hasn't offered really anything of substance for, because it wasn't commercially viable to do so. And so for me, wanting to navigate with people that are on for being real, raw, open, and willing to bring into being the change in their own beingness, because that's the only place that the transformation is going to come from. And I'm not here to change anyone, but I can definitely say, I want to navigate with you if you feel open and resonate with what we speak around. Because what happens then is then we are equal. Then we can hold hands. Then we can be that big row of human beings walking through the field together, shoulder to shoulder, next to each other. And I feel that it's really relevant to get really clear with all of ourselves and everybody individually listening to this. It's like, who do we want to navigate with? And so we have a little filtration system, because I want to get a nice critical mass of, let's say, 1,000 or 1,500 or maybe 2,000 people that really are starting to unfurl and unfold and really because there's magic. We haven't even talked about the magic. We're going to talk about magic at some point, because what this dreaming does, it is the return to the indigenous mind, the indigenous innate capacity of our human beingness, how we dream into being the new world, not from here, not even from here, but through allowing the emergence of life to come through us, because consciousness wants this, but are we willing to make ourselves available? So we're keeping it a little bit nice and tidy at the moment, not because I want to control it. It's just because that's how it naturally would work most centropically.
And it is working, Sovereign. That's the experience that we're having, and that's what's so amazing. So if you want more of these kinds of conversations, because Sovereign has a lot more to say, I can tell you that. We're going to be doing our weekly podcast. We're going to be doing our weekly podcast. This will probably get turned in. So we'll do the live, which will be on the podcast. So we have a lot of that kind of rolling out with Brave New Life, some things in the works so that we can, disseminate some of this information, because I think, what happens, Sovereign, when people hear you speak, there's an activation, and that rewiring, repatterning, whatever we want to call that, is what's so important and needed on the planet. So I'm so grateful for our connection almost a year ago. I can't believe it, but I can believe it totally, actually. So, because I created it. So thanks, Shay, for hosting us. And thanks, Paul, for coming on and sharing. I look forward to both of your films, and we'll put the links out. We'll get this out on the platform and all of our different channels, and there's more to come. Anyone else have anything to say before we close? Other than yay?
Yay.
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 I love you, Shay. I love you,
Yeah.
Paolo. It's so beautiful. And all those that are watching this, check in with what is happening on earthheroestv.com.
Yeah.
We have there our own private Brave New Life section. Check out bravenewlife.net so that you can tune in there. This is the call to adventure. We often speak about the hero's journey, which is very much part of what our human individuated journey on planet Earth is really here for, and probably why we came in the first place. And so this is a call to adventure. Go there, pick up the phone right now, just type it in, go there, see what comes your way, and see if you are willing to allow your attraction from within to be followed by you, the individual that you think you are.
Thanks, everyone, for tuning in.
Thanks, guys.